Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. Today on the program, the government lifts the mandatory face shield use in areas under alert level 1 to 3. Also, President Rodrigo Duterte runs for senator in the 2022 elections. But a retired military general now seeks the presidency, claiming Senator Bongo is controlling the decisions of the president. Presidential aspirant and retired General Antonio Parlade and Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate join us live. So Malacanang announces that there is no need to wear face shields in areas under alert level 1, 2, and 3, but face shields are still mandatory in areas under alert level 5 and granular lockdowns. Face shields are also still required in hospital settings. Despite lifting the policy on face shields, President Rodrigo Duterte adds that wearing of masks remains mandatory. Health Department Secretary Francisco Duque says that masking requirement cannot be removed despite higher vaccination rate.
Huwag po tayong tutulad doon po sa mga bansang nabanggit po namin ni Mr. President na ang Europa, na kung saan siya po ngayon ang epicenter ng global pandemic, ay dahil po sila ay naging pabaya sa kanila pong dati ng ginagawa minimum public health standards. Nagkaroon nga sila ng tinatawag na Freedom Day, na kung saan nagtanggal ng mask at nawala ang social distancing. Kaya di naman nakita natin ay nagtaasan muli, sumipa muli ang kanilang mga kaso.
Political parties and other aspirants made last-minute changes in plans for their 2022 elections under the substitution option. Our Melissa Lopez has Monday's developments at the Commission on Elections headquarters in Manila.
COMELEC's headquarters in Intramuros was bustling in action on Monday as political parties and party lists sought to avail of last-minute changes in their 2022 lineups. Monday's proceedings went relatively smoother than last Saturday, when a crowd of PDP Laban allies and supporters trooped to Intramuros as a show of support to their new presidential bet, Senator Bongo, even though he's running under a different party. Just retired Police Chief Guillermo Eleazar filed as a substitute senatorial candidate of Partido Reforma past 10 in the morning. He asked for Malacanang's blessing but said he's joining the Lacson Soto slate as Senator Ping is his idol and was the first to invite him to run next year. Past noon, former National Task Force to End Local Communist Armed Conflict spokesman Antonio Parlade came to personally substitute and run as a presidential bet of the Katipunan ng Demokratikong Pilipino, but there are still some issues about this. Parlade says he's running to oppose moves in the Senate to defund and abolish the NTF-LCAP. He adds he cannot support Senator Bongo's candidacy despite being fellow Duterte allies. He said Go was, quote, part of the country's problems. By 2 in the afternoon, presidential spokesman Harry Roque also filed his COC as a substitute candidate as senator under the People's Reform Party. And barely half an hour before the 5 p.m. deadline, Federalismo ng Dugong Dakilang Samahan or PDDS Senate aspirant Mona Lisa Visorde pulled out her candidacy, while lawyer Melchor Aranas filed President Rodrigo Duterte's COC in her stead. This is a departure from President Duterte's plan over the weekend to vie for the vice presidency as Senator Bongo's running mate and averts a father-daughter rivalry with Sara. With Sara running as VP and Father Rodrigo in the Senate race, there are now 2 Dutertes running for national posts, defeating Sara's original call that she will not run if her father is running. Meanwhile, PDDS Vice Presidential bet Benedicto Jose pulled out of the race, but the party refused to confirm if the plan was to adopt Mayor Sara as their 2022 candidate. In sum, there were 19 substitutions between October 9 to November 15, and a handful of party lists changing their nominees. Melissa Lopez, CNN Philippines.
And let's now go straight to the source of the story. We have Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate. Congressman Zarate, welcome to the source. Thank you so much for your time.
Good morning, Pinky.
Last day of substitution was yesterday. Would you say we have a better picture or a clearer picture really on who will be running in 2022?
Well, in a way, some smokes have already settled, but that is not the end of it, I think, Pinky. What was settled only was the voluntary substitution. But we know for a fact that even during the day of the election itself, substitution can still happen. But of course, on a limited grounds, for example, if the candidate dies or he is or she is disqualified. So a lot of things can still happen. In fact, some of these candidates may still withdraw and support the other candidate, just to ensure that they will have a continuance of influence and control, especially the still, although already fractious, the Duterte coalition beyond May 9, 2022, Pinky.
So let's clear that up, Congressman. Yung pong tinatawag na voluntary substitution, tapos na po yun. That's why you said
Yes.
Somehow the smoke has cleared. Pero hanggang election day, until noon of election day, if I'm not mistaken, substitution can happen due to unfortunate death or disqualification. And then there's that other thing that you mentioned, that there could be withdrawals to actually support a particular candidate. So let's look at what happened first yesterday. You have certain personalities joining the presidential race, such as retired General Antonio Parlade. First, I wanted to get your reaction. What do you think? What are your thoughts on him gunning for the presidential post?
I think, Pinky, this is only emblematic of how fractious the once vaunted solid Duterte diehard coalition, the DDS coalition now. It is disintegrating mainly because this is composed of different factions, economic factions, political factions, even factions in the military. So it is now brought into the open as a surface na yan. Even this running of General Parlade, the poster boy of Duterte in his anti-red campaign, red tagging and calling just any critic as enemy of the state. So even that, and even the switch, the filing of the certificate of candidacy, the substitution made by Senator Bongo, to run instead as a president rather than a vice president, and the many failed expectations, as to say the least, doon sa inaasahan nilang pagtakbo naman ni Mayor Sara as president,
Opo.
who eventually settled as a vice presidential candidate. So these are all, symptoms of a fractious coalition, na ironically, a year ago, ang nakita natin parang it's the opposition that cannot come together. But now, ang nangyayari at the last minute, ang coalition pala, na Duterte coalition, and including the tandem with other factions, the Marcos clique, the Arroyo clique, ay hindi pala nagkakasundo, Pinky.
We were hoping to have General Parlade also today on the show, but I am told that we might not have him anymore. I think he is all of a sudden unavailable. I wanted to ask you about certain statements made by General Parlade. Ang sabi po niya, tinanong siya, kailan nyo naisip o kailan kayo nagplano o nagdesisyon na tumakbo? He was interviewed yesterday. Ang sabi niya about 4 days ago. And he said a number of things such as it's a political circus. He sees no future for the country. And also, he said that hindi po siya, although wala siyang away kay Senator Bongo, a lot of the decisions of the president ay kontrolado daw ni Senator Bongo. Do you believe that statement of General Parlade? Is there some semblance of truth to that, you think?
Well, that statement, Pinky, coming from General Parlade, may be an indication of one narrative that is now surfacing. No? Dati kasi it was just presented na si Senator Bongo is there to help the president, no? But there are already rumors that actually he is not only the gatekeeper, but actually he is also very influential in the decisions that President Duterte is making, no? Or has made in the past. So ito yung lumalabas ngayon, no? But of course, Malacanang and even the president himself disavowed this. But this will come into play in the coming days, no? Ano ba talaga ang objective? Why while Senator Bongo is now running instead, not only as vice president but a president, no? Then how fractious is this coalition really is now, no? Given the fact that hindi na lang pala mga economic cliques, kundi even as what General Palradi is saying, no, na even within the military or within the defense or the security sector ay merong mga so-called rumblings, no? And we cannot just put this aside, no, because that is as I've said, ito yung emblematic, no, nung how this coalition has been going on in the past 5 years with Duterte at the center trying to keep this coalition together. But now, since President Duterte is perceived to be a lame duck leader, no, lumalabas na itong mga issues na ito, Pinky.
Did you see this happening?
I think this is bound to happen, Pinky. No? Remember, it's like a coalition of convenience. When the DDS coalition started way back, no, even before 2016 election, for the forces that want to recapture Malacanang, for example, the Marcoses, and also the clique of the former President Arroyo, no, who wants to also recapture some powers that lost when she was no longer in power. No? So this coalition of convenience, nakikita kaagad natin ito even during the first days of the presidency of Duterte. No? Even in the House of the Representatives, nakita natin ito how displayed, no? During the intramurals, who will be the speaker and who will be the next speaker
of the House.
So I think this is really bound to happen. No? Unfortunately, ang difference na siguro ngayon, it happened very publicly, no? Na yung kanilang banggaan, and that is something that is, of course, may give the non-administration candidate an opportunity, no, to really hammer the point that we need to replace, dapat wakasan na itong ganitong klaseng governance in our country today.
So the president, there was an expectation yesterday and even the day before that President Rodrigo Duterte will file his certificate of candidacy for vice president. Madami pong nagtaka. Maglalaban ho ba talaga yung dalawang Duterte? That was resolved when his representative filed on behalf of the president his certificate of candidacy for senator. Now that the president will, at this time, supposedly run as senator, do you think ipagpapatuloy ho kaya to ni Pangulong Duterte na tumakbo bilang senador, or are you thinking that at some point he might withdraw?
We cannot really predict, no, how President Duterte will play this kind of political trick, no. But at this point, he can use this as a leverage, of course, no, to still trying to control the narrative, no? And trying to make himself relevant, no? Especially now that it appears President Duterte kasi is used to be he is used to be the center of all of these things, no? Siya yung parang political maestro, no, trying to conduct this political coalition, this orchestra, no? And by filing the certificate of candidacy, he wants to still trying to control the narrative, yeah? But unfortunately, this political orchestra now is very dissonant, no? Fractious. Hindi na nagkakatugma-tugma yung mga tunog nila. So whether he will continue to pursue his senatorial plan, that remains to be the question. Remember, ngayon kasi, Pinky, ang mga sinasabi ni President Duterte ay mahirap mo lang paniwalaan. In the same manner that in September of 2015, he said that he will already retire. No? Pagod na siya sa public service. But we know for a fact that that was jet skied, and he ran for the presidency. Last October 1, when Senator Bongo filed his certificate of candidacy for vice president, he was there and he said, I will now announce my retirement. No?
From politics.
But yesterday, there was a substitution again. And alam naman natin, Pinky, the work in Congress is not really the cup of President Duterte, no? Hindi niya talaga gusto yung nasa siya, sa Kongreso. Remember when he won as a representative of the first district of Davao City in 1998, hindi nga niya tinapos yun. So itong pagpa-file niya ng certificate of candidacy for Senate slate is just, a point of leverage for him, no? And also in pushing for the candidacy of Senator Bongo as president, and of his daughter, Sara Duterte, for vice president.
All right. So again, as you mentioned, Congressman Zarate, no, maraming pwede pang mangyari. And in fact, maaga-aga pa rin. It's only November, so we have about 6 months until Election Day. In the meantime, Bayan Muna Representative Carlos Zarate. Sir, maraming salamat po sa inyong oras.
Thank you, Pinky, and good morning.
Thank you, sir. And presidential aspirant and retired General Antonio Parlade initially agreed for an interview, but we found out that he is unavailable at the moment. Still to come, let's talk about the lifting of face shield policy and this talk about whether or not kids should be allowed inside the mall. San Juan Mayor Francis Zamora will be with us after the break. Please stay tuned.